Parliament, yeah, in a victory in central Manchester against the mayor of Mandeville, Donovan Mitchell. According to the political chatter, Rhoda Moy was facing defeat in central Manchester against Mitchell, and the forces arrayed against her in central Manchester this time around. Well, this woman, who was a political neophyte in 2020, has now demonstrated her political ability. She has demonstrated that she can take a hit, a punch, and she can give a punch. No doubt about that. I am told that the Labour Party was worried that she would not have been able to hold central Manchester. Well, she did so, and she did so very well. Let me just bring up the numbers here. Manchester Central, 9,098 votes against Donovan Mitchell's 8,916. It means that she increased her vote count over her 2020 result, while the PNP also increased their vote count. But she has done so well that she is able to fight them off. Rhoda Moy Crawford has proven to be a political fighter. I gather the Labour Party even toyed with the idea of shifting her from central Manchester. And somehow, I don't know what happened, but that didn't work, or she refused, I don't know. But she stayed in central Manchester, and she dug in, and she's a winner this morning. In fact, the Labour Party this morning has several women who withstood the PNP resurgence yesterday, you know. Rhoda in central Manchester, Tova Hamilton, the attorney at law in northern Trelawney. She held off the PNP bigwig, Wickham McNeil, Dr. Wickham McNeil, a seat that the PNP was banking on to return to its fold, yeah, to get over the hurdle, the high bar of gaining 18 net new seats. Well, in northern Trelawney, Tova Hamilton, 8,159 votes, to Wickham McNeil, 7,820. And this is significant, you know, because central Manchester and northern Trelawney, under the old politics, are usually seats that you tick off in the PNP column before you start an election. And it was said that the JLP won it, or won them, in the COVID pandemic of 5 years ago, and that was seen as something of a fluke. So we were expecting realignment in the politics, that those seats will be going back to the PNP now. For Northern Trelawney, no. For Central Manchester, no. Where it happened, where the realignment happened, is in Eastern Portland, where Anne-Marie Vaz went down to Isaac Buchanan. Yes. And that is proving to be something of a surprise, a shocker to a number of people. The result? Vaz, 8,181. Buchanan, 8,316. If I can do my math, that's a majority of just about 140. Is that it? Anne-Marie Vaz lost by 140. But look at the votes, 8,000 for both candidates, 8,000 plus. Now this seat, Eastern Portland, under the old politics, has been traditionally strong PNP. You remember when Dr. Peter Phillips told the media in that by-election of 2019 that, listen, PNP is going to win Eastern Portland because it's a PNP seat? I think what we saw is that realignment, the PNP base, yeah, proved just too much for Anne-Marie Vaz yesterday in Eastern Portland. The other ladies that shone last night must be Favour Williams. I have to take a break now? Okay, let's go to the break. Notable political wins. And I was onto Favour Williams, this highly underestimated woman, the finance minister. There were all kinds of whispers that she was in trouble in Eastern St. Andrew. It was an open secret that the PNP had put a big target on her back to bring down, to regain Eastern St. Andrew. And last night, she prevailed. She prevailed by more than just under 500 votes. And that is a significant win because Eastern St. Andrew is a very competitive marginal seat. That's the kind of margins you win by in Eastern St. Andrew. 161, she won by in 2016. Then the fluke COVID election, it went up by more than 2,000. It's now back into normal range. And Favour Williams, I noticed last night when she turned up at the JLP headquarters, she got a huge welcome, yeah? Because she is a very underestimated woman, bright woman. She doesn't have the gift of gab like some of us do, but she is bright, she does her work, she's very diligent, yeah? She's a credit to the political process. The other one last night, the two Juliets, the Speaker of the House, the Prime Minister's wife, Juliet Cuthbert, Flynn as well. The Prime Minister's wife retained East Road St. Andrew, another of the PNP targets, and she held them off. She gained 9,364 votes to Peter King of the PNP, 8,498, winning by just under 1,000 votes. Yeah? And you saw the PNP put in the effort to defeat Juliet Holness. It didn't work. She held on. In fact, that wall, I call it the St. Andrew Wall, Middle St. Andrew Wall of JLP seats from Juliet Holness in the east, East Rural, Favour Williams in Eastern St. Andrew, to Juliet Cuthbert in the west, in West Rural St. Andrew. The PNP had to break through that wall last night, and they didn't. They didn't break through it. And it's partly why they are not in government today. Yeah? Juliet Cuthbert Flynn, she proved herself. She's now a political veteran. She came home with more than 1,500 votes to spare, gaining 8,414 to her opponent, 7,235. Her opponent, the political veteran, Joan Gordon Webley. Well, this must be curtains now for Mrs. Gordon Webley. She's now a perennial loser. And I think this must be the end of the road for her. Yeah? The other JLP woman to hold her seat against the whispers last night, Marlene Malahoo Fort in West Central St. James. Yes, it was felt and pretty well known that she was not the most accessible, they say, or the most gifted of street politicians. Yeah, she's not that kind of person. But she did well last night. 6,155 to Dr. Andre Horton. Horton's 5,404. And she was considered vulnerable. She came home. Yeah? And Andre Horton has to lick the wounds of another defeat at her hands. On the PNP side, Nikisha Burchell in South St. James, she's going to the parliament. Yes? She is going to the parliament. She defeated Homer Davis narrowly, but decisively. 6,483 she gained to Homer Davis's 6,276. That's just over 200 votes. Yeah? So the women did well last night. The PNP also has Heather Miller Bennett coming from Western Hanover, an attorney at law for the first time in the parliament, yeah, among their 29. Yeah. Another woman, how could I forget? A newcomer to the politics, drafted in at a very late stage, the ambassador, Audrey Marks. She carried home Northeast Manchester against the veteran Valentin Wint of the PNP. And she was, as I said, a late comer to the politics. Well, she performed very well last night, gaining 8,139 votes to 6,274 for Mr. Wint. So Audrey Marks, the diplomat, has made the transition from diplomat to politician. You'll see on the campaign trails, the photographs, the videos of her in her sneakers walking the hills and valleys of Northeast Manchester. Another one that we need to make, and I need to do an actual count. Krista Lee in Northwest St. Anne. Yeah, the PNP was hoping to defeat her. That did not happen in St. Anne. Let me bring up her numbers. Yeah, Northwest St. Anne. She polled 8,050 votes as against Gabriella Morris, another young woman from the PNP, Senator Morris, 7,488. So Krista Lee, so the women held for the JLP last night in several constituencies. And Kerencia Morrison held in Northeast St. Catherine. Well, she was never considered to be vulnerable. But tomorrow is what, Friday? By the end of the week, by early next week, we should be hearing who will make up the new government. And I suspect that several of these female politicians who are now into their second and third terms in government will be promoted to the political executive. Yeah, I don't like calling names, because, you may have what you call the commentator's curse. Yeah, but certainly I see a Rhoda Moy Crawford now going to the political executive, Kerencia Morrison, yeah, going to the political executive, yeah, just to name two, Tova Hamilton out in Northern Trelawney. Just think about it. If they didn't come through last evening, the JLP would be heading into opposition. So I suspect we're going to see several of them in the front line now of the political executive. On the PNP side, where the men are concerned, Dr. Dayton Campbell is heading back to Gordon House, having lost in Northwest St. Anne in 2020, or is it 2016? 2020. Yeah, he's heading back yeah, after he was defeated by Crystal Lee. Interesting, eh? Crystal Lee is returning, so too Dayton Campbell. Talk of him losing East Westmoreland to Daniel Lawrence, yeah, did not materialize, yeah. In fact, Westmoreland delivered for the PNP. They regained all the 3 Westmoreland seats they lost in 2020, yeah. Ian Hales, a vice president of the party, he prevailed over Garfield James in Western Westmoreland, the former principal, yeah? And Dwayne Vaz is making a comeback in central Manchester after he defeated George Wright of the JLP. Also making a return to Gordon House, Damian Crawford, yeah, in Northwest St. Catherine, defeating Newton Amos. In Northwest Clarendon, Richard Azan is also returning to the House. Yes, he defeated Warren Newby. And as I said earlier, the attorney at law, Vibes Cartel lawyer, Isaac Buchanan, defeating Anne-Marie Vaz in East Portland in a shock result for a lot of people. A lot of people have been asking me, what happened to Anne? Well, as I said, I think the PNP base was just too much to overcome. The PNP consolidated its base going into 2025. Yeah? Another woman that you're going to hear some more about now, Zulika Jess. She regained the PNP rural stronghold of Northeast St. Elizabeth over the JLP's Delroy Slowly. Yeah? I think that's where I'm going to leave it for the moment. And then when we come back, we have an interview with the returning Member of Parliament in Manchester Central, Rhoda Moy Crawford.